Welcome back to the show with myself, Nafisa Dango, on Mid-Morning Talk Show. And we're talking to very inspirational people, changing our mindsets and helping us overcome those types of, should we say, challenges that we face in our lives every single day, and educating us about getting into better spaces. And this morning, we're going to be speaking to Sharon Gerkin, the managing director at Dyslexia South Africa. And she's going to give us more insight to the situation and what to look out for and how to educate ourselves to be able to help our kids move into a better space. A very good morning and a warm welcome to you. Thank you so much for joining myself and the team on the show this morning.
I'm terribly sorry. I am in bed. I do have COVID. So,
oh
dear. In the bed, but I thought
no, Sharon. Well, our prayers are with you before we even start. We are going to pray that God gives you a quick recovery and that you feel better. And I want to thank you so much. With being in the space that you are, I'm actually heartfelt taken over here because you've been so selflessly encouraging to be able to come on the show and give us some insight. So thank you so much. And I do pray to God that you get better real quick.
Thank you. You know what, I think that we as dyslexics get very few times that we can voice who we are and how we fit in society and COVID is a very real thing at the moment.
I can see that. So before we start, Sharon, I want people to know a little bit about you. Give us a little bit of insight into Sharon Gerkin.
Okay, so the insight is that when I was at school, and I'm now 58, was that I was diagnosed as being, she can't spell, she can't sit still, she doesn't try hard enough, she can't write very neatly, and you sort of learn to cope. But now, once I had my children, and they were sorely dyslexic, and I have an Asperger's child too, and there was nobody to help them, I started on my journey into learning about dyslexia and how to acknowledge it, how to help it, and where to go and what to do. So that is my journey.
I'm sure you found it very difficult because, in spaces like this, support structures are actually what makes the difference. Talk to us about dyslexia. How would a parent actually pick it up, and would it be picked up from a teacher, or would it be picked up from the parent from an earlier age before the kids actually go into the school environment?
Generally, these children can be and usually are incredibly bright. So we start to notice it in school when their verbal abilities get better than their reading and writing abilities. If a child is able to answer all the questions about what they've learned or tell you about what has been read to them, but they're unable to read it or put their sense down on paper, that's what we look for. Because if we look at the word dyslexia, it means this difficulty with lexia, which is reading and writing.
Right.
So can we pick it up in preschool? Not necessarily, unless it's very severe. But when we really start seeing it is from the age of 9, when they're going to grade 3 and 4, and they have to learn to read and write.
Right. So how does one deal with those types of things? How do we create the support structure to be able to, we know that these children have some form of intelligence, but there's surely a way to be able to help them and deal with them and a process to be followed to be able to understand what they're going through and then give them the necessary support. Shem, I feel so bad for you. I really do hope that you get well soon.
Me too. But we have to start off with an educational psychologist. The education department, whether it's IEB, whether it's the Islamic schools, whether it's government systems, or whether it's Cambridge, if we can get a child diagnosed with a learning disability, so whether it's a dyslexia or an auditory processing or whatever it is, we are then able, as a parent, to stand by strength and ask for the right that these children are allowed. they are allowed extra time. They are allowed spelling concessions. In severe cases, they are allowed scribes and they are allowed people to read for them. But unless we get it diagnosed, we can do nothing. Our hands are tied.
I understand what you're saying. That gets very difficult. And as you were saying, I mean, it's also looking out for those signs in a child, like, of course, having problems with forming words correctly, remembering letters and names. Do they spell it backwards as well? Is that what you would expect? No, that's not dyslexia.
What dyslexia, it could be a part of dyslexia, is that we have something that is visually affected. So then I always suggest that parents do occupational therapy, because if it's a visual processing issue, then we need to get the eye sorted in order for them to do reading. If you're reversing letters, it's because there's something in your visual processing system that's not working. So,
Right.
and it's hard for parents because dyslexia falls under a huge umbrella. Those children generally have attention problems. They've got auditory processing problems. They've got visual. So what is it and where do we go as parents? And the best thing to do there is to try and get an educational assessment.
Okay, and once they've got an educational assessment, would an occupational therapist work, or what is it that you suggest they do going forward from there?
So the educational psychologist report will give you, at the end of the report, they give you recommendations. And they say, either it's occupational therapy or speech and language therapy. And in that, they'll say that the child needs extra time when doing exams. They need spelling concessions. So it doesn't matter how badly they spell. If it can be read, they have to get it marked correctly. So we can't get concessions for grammar, but we certainly can for spelling and reading and writing.
Right. Sharon, let's talk about this. A lot of people, I think, are under the impression that dyslexia is only something that you find in children, but not realizing that it actually goes with you through your life, through your teens, into your adulthood at some point. So let's talk about what we would expect from a teenager. What is it that we look into a teenager, and how do we create the support structure there? Is it the same type of support structure that we would create when they are young kids, or is it different when they get into their teens?
It's different when they get into their teens, because then we get a lot of frustrations, and in a lot of cases children fall out of school in their teens because they're strong, they should be doing everything, but then they don't. So they either get failed or they get to grade 10 and leave school. And it's not because they're stupid, it's because they're battling with that. Let's face it, school is about reading and writing. We used to have wonderful technical schools, but we don't anymore. What do we do with these children? And then those children, and then our crime level goes up, because we have children that are leaving school that are clever but can't read and write. And if you think about it, even doing a shopping list, going shopping, you have to be able to see the difference between a 1-ply and a 2-ply toilet paper.
Exactly. And I think I so agree with you. That's something people take for granted, but especially people that are in a normal situation, not realizing how this affects people actually, like you were saying, into their adulthood, where a simple thing like going to the store actually affects your life. And so how would one sort this out from a teenage level? What is your take on it? How would you advise parents to deal with it, and of course help their kids? I know dyslexia is not something that can be, it's something that's with you, but there's a way to deal with it. It's not something that you can overcome. I stand to be corrected, but as I read earlier, it's not something that that leaves you. It's stuck with you as we speak. So how did you overcome it, Sharon? Let's hear from your life experience.
I remain a dyslexic. I have days where I can't spell. I was trying to spell ridiculous the other day. So what I do is I reduce my language, written. If you hear me speak, I'm quite eloquent, but if you had to look at my written language, it's maybe not as eloquent as my spoken language. So I reduce my language in order to put it down on paper. I do love to read, but I have to read in shorter segments because otherwise I don't take in anything that I'm reading. You know, people always think that dyslexics can't read. We can read, but we often, this is where we also see it in school, is that a lot of them read well, but then the comprehension, when you have to answer a comprehension test, is that's where we fall apart. So I would suggest if parents have a teenager in high school that's struggling and they do have a little bit of money, there's something called a C reader.
Okay.
It's a pen, and you can run it over the writing, and it reads everything for you. And if there's a term that you don't understand, it will give you an explanation for that term or that word. They are allowed in schools if we have the reports. They work very well for adults too. It's a C reader. It's a little pen, and it scans the line. It reads the line to you. So it makes it much easier for you to work.
Has awareness been created in the schools and in the tertiary environments to be able to actually make those particular environments understand dyslexia and help those people that are in those situations, in those particular institutions?
It has got a lot better, and over my 20 years of been doing this, it definitely has got a lot better. But there's a lot of, questions about, does dyslexia exist? We now know that we can virtually see it in brain scans. It is definitely an existing condition that you don't outgrow. You learn to cope, and you learn to do things around it. And if you think now we can get technology that can write for us and can read for us, so it gets easier for us to cope as adults. But even as adults, we need to go and get an educational assessment or just an IQ assessment, because we as adults take strain, because more and more work is emails. You have to read those emails as fast as everybody else, reply to those emails as fast as everybody else, and as eloquent. But if we can get a letter to state that maybe if we have to hand in reports for work, can we hand them on a Monday so that we can have the weekend to work on them? Do we need a little bit of extra time in taking things? Yes, but there's also an embarrassment about having dyslexia, because instead of thinking that it's a difficulty with reading and writing, it's almost taken as a stupid. You can't read and write, so you're stupid. It's not that I'm stupid. I need more time to process that information. If I could tell my workplace that I do have a dyslexia, I'm able to read and write.
Sharon, we seem to have lost sound there. Have you unmuted? Can you try and unmute your phone?
Can you hear me?
Yes, now I can. Yes, now I can.
Somebody was just trying to call. So as adults, it's really difficult if we won't acknowledge it ourselves. If I'm proud enough to stand up and say, I have dyslexia, it means that I'm going to be a little bit slower than you. But give me a chance, and I'm going to do my best to keep up. But we almost scared to acknowledge that we are dyslexic, because in saying that, we're saying that there's something wrong with us, and maybe we'll lose our jobs because we have this. So I think adult dyslexia is not as clear emphasis paid to it at the moment as there is on childhood dyslexia, and especially in a South African environment.
Right. Do you suggest maybe in a life orientation subject or something like that, or even in a school, they should have actually a support structure to help these people deal with it and learn to take it forward with them as they go along, as like you have. In many directions, you've learned to deal with it in your own way. Like you say, take it in your stride, ask people if you can have more time with things. should we bring awareness to that in those types of environments as well? Because I don't think there has been much awareness created with this. A lot of people don't even understand what dyslexia actually is.
I absolutely agree. It's like, how come everybody knows about attention deficit? And it's okay to walk into a building and say, I have attention deficit, I've got medication, but why is it a problem to say I'm a dyslexic and I need a bit of extra help? So I think if knowledge was spread about all forms of learning difficulties in a classroom where children get to know what autism is and to get to know what attention deficit is and dyslexia and a myriad of the small problems that your classmates can have, do we not become better adults and understanding? And I might have to read through an email for a friend because they just want their grammar corrected in an office. And then I understand it's because they're dyslexic and they're not lazy. They just need an extra bit of help. So if we as people can teach people that learning difficulties do exist and they go into adulthood, you don't just wake up one day and they're gone, would we not have a better society? Definitely.
Most definitely. I agree with you there. What do you think is the most important thing our viewers need to know this morning?
Trust your gut as a parent. As mothers, we get to do homework with our children, but we have also seen them grow from little. If your gut instinct says there's something wrong, you go and sort it out. Don't rely on the school. They've got 100 or 200 or 400 other students. They're not as invested in your child. If you, as a parent, don't believe and invest in your child, nobody will.
That is so true.
Child, learn their rights, whatever the learning disability is. Learn that that child has rights. There's a government paper. It's called White Paper 6, I think it is. It's for children with learning disabilities. What is allowed and what isn't allowed? What rights can we fight for? What rights are they by law allowed in a classroom? If we don't fully learn about our children and stand up for them, they fail because we fail.
That's so true. I think it's about you, the parent. It starts with you yourself being the support structure and then reaching out there and saying, I need to take my child or my teenager and get that added support. But it's having to understand, I think, and this is where it comes into play, where I think, firstly, the parents themselves need to be educated with regard to this and how to deal with it and what they can do for their children from the home perspective before they actually can go to the school and say, this is what we need to do. Are you all right there?
Yes, I'm fine, thanks.
From the dyslexic point of view, from Dyslexic South Africa, what sort of awareness have you been creating as far as this is concerned?
So I've always been giving talks for free. I'll ask for a cup of tea. I'll talk to people now on Zoom. I'm quite happy to speak to teachers and give as much advice as I can, because I think it's not that teachers don't want to help. When you learn as a teacher, they teach you about learning disabilities. They don't say, this is what auditory processing looks like. This is what visual processing looks like. This is what a dyslexia looks like. This is what attention deficit looks like. And teachers got 30 children in a class. It's not the teacher's fault. They are very willing. They are often overworked, underpaid, and tired. And so I always support the teachers. I'm happy to give information wherever I can. I'm happy to teach teachers, spread the news, and also give parents advice. I mean, advice costs nothing. You know,
exactly.
What are the hopes for your children if you don't get them help? Where do you go? What do you do? Where do you start? And once you start, learn yourself as an adult, and then empower other people.
Now, that's what it's about. It's about actually reaching out there and empowering each other. And do we have a dyslexic association where you create support structures for each other?
Well, I am Dyslexic Association of South Africa. Obviously, with COVID, I've sort of closed down and I still do Zoom meetings and stuff like that. But I am also acknowledging that I'm also getting older. And we have a small group of women. We've got some excellent educational psychologists that work with us and OTs. So the knowledge is spreading. And it's but like I say, for the adult world, there's no group.
And that's why we're saying we need to start creating those structures so that we can have a better environment. And as you say, have people dealing with the situation in a better way. But I really do want to thank you for joining us this morning. I want to commend your bravery. Our heart goes out to you. Our prayers are with you from the Salam Media team. Thank you so much. You've been so brave to actually just come on, irrespective of your situation that you're in. I want to thank you so much. But Godspeed. We're praying for you every single day that you get stronger and better. And that's all we have to say for you. But do take care of yourself.
If parents want to, I'll give you my email address. I'll
Sure.
Send it to you, and parents can send me an email, and I might not answer in the next few days.
No, surely understood.
I'll promise to get back to every single email and answer and direct as best I can. Okay.
The reason I didn't ask that right now is because I just wanted you to get some time to find your strength and get back to normal. And our prayers are with you. To take care of yourself and stay safe. And thank you so much. Take care. Bye-bye. That was Sharon Gerkin, a very brave woman, suffering from dyslexia with the Dyslexic South Africa Association, teaching us about, the situation and how to deal with it from, of course, a young age right until into adulthood. And we want to also just wish her all the best. Shame, she's been so brave. I'm actually taken aback here to actually come on yet, suffering from COVID-19. So we're just praying that she does recover fully. We're going to go for a quick break. We'll be with you in a minute.